I have to do this. Okay, here we go. So today we're going to talk about documenting a NIFRS incident inside of FireWorks and how we document NIFRS incidents that either come in from the CAD or that you manually have to add if your CAD system is not functioning correctly. We'll also talk about 3 other tasks. We'll talk about how we handle training and how we document 3 types of training. There may be training that your training division has assigned to you individually as a part of the department to where you'll be able to go in, click on a class, and complete that class. And then there may be classes that you do self-study on, and you want to document that self-study as a training component inside of the software. So we'll talk about self-assigning individual classes. And then lastly, we'll talk about you're the officer in a station, your crew does some training today, and you want to document that training in the system to give your entire crew credit for the training. And we'll talk about that part of documenting training as well. And then the last 2 parts we'll talk about will be um, documenting hydrant inspections, how you'll be able to go into find hydrants that are assigned to your station and your shift, and you can go out and document a hydrant inspection, including documenting errors or problems with the hydrants and sending notification to your water department that you came across a problem with the hydrant out in the field. And then lastly, the other area we'll be covering is pre-planning, to where you'll be able to go in and look for protected properties in our system that you've been assigned to go out and conduct a pre-plan on, and what we enable you to do inside of pre-planning in our software. So those are the processes that we're going to cover this morning. We have slated for about 3 hours. I usually give you guys just a stretch break once or twice, depending on who's dozing off, who's not dozing off, who needs coffee. I'll kind of read the room and we'll take 1 or 2 breaks if needed. Um, and then if we get through early, we get through early and you guys bug out. I mean, we got a 3-hour block that I have to fit it in, and we've done pretty good yesterday in doing it, so I think we'll be okay. This is FireWorks. FireWorks is our records management system for the fire service by EPR. EPR Systems is an analytics and data system. We're worldwide. Our main focus for the fire side is in the United States, and we're about to go into Mexico, but primarily the United States, including Alaska. We have departments in Alaska, and we're about to pick up Hawaii as well. So we're pretty much cover the U.S. Our system is cloud-based, so there is no app. It's accessed through a browser. So I'm basically using Google Chrome here this morning. Google Chrome is our preferred browser because Google Chrome basically is pretty much the best browser out there. We don't use Edge. We don't recommend you use Edge. Edge is on a Windows machine so that you can download Google Chrome and use Google Chrome as your browser. That's the only reason that Microsoft actually put Edge as a browser in their system. We will work with Mozilla Firefox. It's another good browser that is a recommended browser. And then we are device agnostic. We work on MacBooks, we work on Windows, we work on Google Chromebooks, and we work on Android devices. So any device you have, you can use and run our software. We work well on Safari if you're using a MacBook, or you can download the Chrome for Apple and use Chrome on a MacBook as well. Um, that's kind of the process we are. Have to have access to the internet to run most of our programs. The ones today we'll speak about, with the exception of the pre-planned one, you'll need access to your Chromebook, to the internet. Our medical side for our electronic patient care reports, they are allowed to go dark, so you can go without internet access and still document patient care, and then it'll upload to the cloud at that point once it's there. We are email address driven. That is your username. So you'll notice if you haven't logged into the software, hopefully you should have. When you log into your software and you put in your password and then you click sign in, it will let you sign into the software. You'll also notice in the bottom left corner we have a forgot password feature, so that if you do forget your password, we can help you reset your own password. Best thing I can tell you from a firefighter perspective, we do not require you to change your password. Okay. So I'm 42 years retired out of the fire service a month ago. So I've worked from a firefighter through a fire chief. Uh, so I've struggled with the strains of password issues. So I was very happy when our department and we chose this software 2 years ago, to where now we don't have to worry about changing passwords every 30, 60, or 90 days. So as soon as you log in the first time into the software, it may pop up a box that says this. And basically, if there's not a phone number in your account and you need a phone number in your account, we give you the feature where that forgot password feature is, if you go into that system and you click in yes to do that, at the very bottom of your profile, there's a place for you to enter your cell phone number and your cell phone carrier. If you provide that information and you do forget that one-time password and you click forgot password, we'll actually ask you to enter your cell phone number. And if your cell phone number matches the user email associated with that cell phone number, we will send you a one-time password so that you can use that one-time password that'll go to your cell phone, put it in, and we'll prompt you to create a new password for you. So it's not anything other than the phone number in the carrier is designed to allow you to do your own self password reset. If you don't have that feature inside of the system, then basically you'll end up having to contact someone in your department, and administration, and have them set your password. So when you log into the software, you'll notice that you're going to come to a landing page. And the overview of how FireWorks operates is we have a top ribbon, and the top ribbon is going to show you the areas of the software that you're able to navigate to based upon your permissions. If for some reason you don't see words across this top ribbon, it's possibly because your screen size is something that is not allowing us to do it, because we're shrinking this to give you more room down here. So a smaller resolution, you may not see words across the top, but you may see what I call the hamburger, or the 3 lines on the top right corner. If you have the 3 lines on the top right corner, by clicking on those, you'll notice the sidebar will come in and it'll let you access the different areas of the software. So there's 2 views that you'll notice in our software. One is where the ribbon contains the modules, and the other is where the ribbon doesn't contain the modules. It just contains what I call the hamburger, but the hamburger is actually your menu button so that you can see that components inside of our software. So I'll go back to that view. You'll notice our software is broken into areas, and as you travel across the areas, there's a second ribbon that if certain areas are divided up, for example in hydrants, you'll notice that the second ribbon will provide you with 2 different areas to view as well. So we run a double ribbon in our software. We run a main ribbon at top and then a secondary ribbon in the bottom of the software as well. Under your name, if you all click on your name, you'll notice that there'll be some features that'll pop up. And the features that pop up in that process is we give you access to a user manual, we give you access to release notes, and we give you access to a knowledge base. And looking at these, if I would go to the knowledge base and I wanted to find out any information about a certain process, you'll notice that we have all kind of access and all kind of features to where we will walk you through doing different parts of our system. So for example, we're about to talk about a dashboard, but if I wanted to see about how to create a dashboard profile, I could go right here to the widget and basically look at the process of how to create a dashboard, and it brings you through the step-by-step process of creating a dashboard. In some of these, you will also notice there will be a video. So if there's a video, a tutorial video, you'll also see the tutorial video that will allow you to capture and look at that information as well. So depending on where you're at in the system and what you'd like to see, we provide you with both that feature of the knowledge base and of our user manuals. And you'll notice in our user manuals, it's kind of a more abbreviated version, and the knowledge base gets more into the process. So just a few things that we have inside of our software to help you in the event that you're looking at something and you maybe don't understand or forgot how to do a component. The last thing under your name is what's called the library, and that's your departmental library. So as the department migrates into and uses our system, they will have a library to where there, if documents that they want you guys to see or videos they want you guys to watch or any type of information, they can upload it to the departmental library, and you'll be able to view that information directly from our software. It can be videos, it can be documents, it can be fillable PDFs. We have a couple of departments that they took all of their forms, their requests for leaves, their any kind of request or paper document they had before, they put them in here, because since we're cloud-based, you can access from any location. So if you're at home and you need to request a vacation day, we've had departments to where they put all of that in the library, and a firefighter is able to go in, make a request, and shoot that PDF into admin to get approval without having to be at the office. So some departments have actually maximized the use of the library component. And then lastly, we saw this earlier, but we'll talk about it again. We have what's called the My Profile section. Actually, next month, the My Profile section is going to be expanded. Not only will you be able to update your personal and contact information, you can also update your mailing address. You can also update your emergency or contacts that are in your system if you require to give a name of an emergency contact in the event of an injury. So all of that is going to expand and be added into this section. And then the last thing I'll point out in this area is you'll notice right here where it says attachments. Attachments is a hyperlink to your individual staff record as far as documents. So if your department decides to actually take your paper personnel jacket and make it digital, they can upload documents in your personnel jacket, certifications, personnel action forms, whatever it might be. They can put it into your electronic staff record, and now you'll have access to your personnel jacket without having to contact somebody in administration. So just a few things that we've done in FireWorks to make it a more user-friendly for the firefighters on the floor to actually get something out of the software. So the next section we'll talk about is deal with dashboards. So if everybody clicks on dashboard, if you're logged in, you'll notice that your dashboard may or may not be empty depending on if you set through the class. Yours is probably already built. So this is our dashboard section. What we use for our dashboard is a way for you to document and see what's going on inside of our system. Things like if I have hydrants that are scheduled to be inspection, if I have pre-plans that are scheduled to be done, if I have training assigned to me or what training I've done, what calls are dropping into the system, who's riding on the truck, and how do I document my daily journal. So inside of the dashboard, we enable each user to set up their own individual dashboard. So it can be customizable to show the things that you want to see inside of the department while you're working. All of your system, if you haven't set one up, and if you have a white box in the top right corner that says no dashboards yet, and it asks you to add a dashboard, there's a 3-step process to adding your dashboard. The first step is giving your dashboard a name. So if you'll notice in this section right here where it says no dashboards, there's a plus symbol. If I would click on the plus symbol, I can give my dashboard a name. So I'll just call it my daily dashboard. And I can click add. And at that point, it tells me that now I've added a dashboard, and I can move to step 2 of the process, which is figuring out what do I want to see on my dashboard. And the way to see things on your dashboard, we call those widgets in our software. So you'll notice that next to the dashboard name, there's a blue box and it says add a widget. If you click on the add widget, it brings up a list of all of the widgets that you have available to you. So you can take your time and go through and look at all of the widgets and see what you'd like to see. So for example, I may put my daily journal, my bulletin board, my daily roster, and then I'll come down to incidents, and I may want to see my incidents that are occurring during this shift. Just 4 I selected. When I click to add those widgets, it drops all of those widgets inside of the system. So you'll notice the bulletin board is basically that, a bulletin board. And if you're given rights to come in and document things to bulletin boards, this is where you'll see it. Your daily journal are items that are set, that are entered in, and some of them you'll notice that you might be able to see, and others you'll notice that you can view it, but you can't make changes to it. And we'll talk about the daily journal in a second. And then below that is your roster, and below that is your calls. So once you've dropped your widgets on the page, you can next go to step 3, and you can arrange your widgets so they're in the area you want to view them at. So to the left of the dashboard name, there is a lock that is in gold. And if you click on the lock to open it, it turns to blue. And the first thing you'll notice is that every widget automatically had a red X pop up in the top right corner. What the red X allows you to do is, if you don't like that widget, it's maybe not what you wanted, you can click the red X and it will remove that widget from your dashboard and put it back in the widget bucket so that you can grab it later if you'd like to use it. The other thing it allows you to do is it allows you to come in here and say, okay, I want to change how these things look. And you may come and say, well, I want to put my schedule at the top, and I want to make my schedule be longer running down one side so I don't have to scroll inside of the schedule. Excuse me. I can basically just look at it all in one view. And then on the right side, I want to make my bulletin board a little bit bigger, or maybe I want to put my journal above my bulletin board. And I'll go down here and grab my schedule and bring it back up. And then I can now come in here and have my journal on one side at the top, my bulletin board on the other side at the top, so that I can see what's happening there. And then below that, I'll have my bulletin board below my journal, and then maybe across the bottom, I'll list all of my incidents inside of the system. Once you get your layout like you like it, by simply locking the lock back, it'll save that layout. So the next time that you log into your dashboard, that's going to be the view that you'll see inside of our software. A couple of things about widgets. The first one I'll talk about is the schedule. You'll notice that it says current time, but you can also change it to by shift. And now it will show you if anybody on that truck is actually getting off in the middle of a shift or is working a half shift. You'll actually break it down to where it shows you the whole 24-hour period. from 8 a.m. to 8 a.m. the next day. Current time will show you who's riding the truck at the current time. The daily journal feature allows you to come in here and document. If you wanted to add an entry, you could basically pick what type of entry you wanted to add, and then by clicking right here, it'll let you to add an entry into the daily journal. One of the things about our daily journal, a couple of things to take note. You'll notice we have an opening date and an expiration date. If I'm documenting something today, by default, we'll open today's date, but I want the shift tomorrow to see it as well, then I would change my expiration date to tomorrow's date. That way, anything that you document in the daily journal today will be visible tomorrow for that oncoming shift. If I want the next two shifts to see that, then I can come in here and I can put the 2 days out as the expiration date, and not only tomorrow's shift will see it, but the shift following the next day will also see that information. So depending on who and how many days you want to display that information in the daily journal, you can actually come in there and set the expiration date. The next thing you'll notice is the entry type. Your department is building a whole list of entry types inside of that process. So once you select the entry type, the next part is, who do you want to see that journal entry? If you document the journal entry for everyone, then everyone in the department that logs into the journal will be able to see that information. If you want it just to show at the station level, you can pick what station can view it, and then those people in that station, when they're logged in, they'll be able to see that information. It's at their station level. And then the last two sections is, if you just want to send the notification to a certain person, you can select that person, and they will see it on their journal as well as you having it on your journal, but you are the only one that can edit it. Their view will just be a read-only view in that process. And then if you update that journal, they will also see the updates moving forward. And then lastly, if you have a group section, I can come in here and say, I want to send it to a group, and maybe I want to send it to just my battalions or my battalion admin chiefs or my lieutenants. I can put it in there, and then everybody that's in the lieutenant group will be able to see that journal entry. So we allow you to enter entries, but then we allow you to select who's going to see it. The only person that can modify it is the person that created the journal entry. But whoever you put in the group that is intended for, they will be able to see the journal entry and read it. So that's kind of how we handle our daily journal inside of the system. An example here is, I did these two, so you know I have access to create it, but this was done by Eric, and you'll notice I can't do anything with that one because he was a different user and he created that entry. I can click on it because I can view it and I can read it, but I have no rights to actually make a change to it. So that's kind of how we manage your daily journal operation. And then the other one to point, yes, sir.
So if I'm tracking correctly, if I make a journal entry and I set it to my station, you know, and 5 people, they're the only ones that are gonna see it. But if I only post it for today, they're only gonna see it today. If they go in tomorrow or the next shift, they'll never see it again.
Correct.
Now, what about other lieutenants at that station? Like, because the way we use our journal now is the way we do on our station. I'll make my journal entry for the day. I tell, you know, my pass off to the next lieutenant coming in. But if he forgets what I told him, he can just go back one day in the system.
Same thing here.
Okay.
So when we talk about the expiration date, it takes it off of the view for that date period.
They still have the ability.
Right. So if I wanted to go back and see something that maybe didn't carry over, I could click right here and go back the prior day, And you'll notice here's some more that were there that are showing up.
Cool deal.
Same exact thing. The thing that we do that makes it a little bit easier that a lot of our officers like is the fact that we give you that expiration date. So if something that you want to show these guys for the next week, you can just say post this for 7 days, and they don't have to go back and look because it will be on that journal carrying over every day for 7 days. You follow me? It does not get deleted, or it does not get removed from that daily view for 7 days. And then at the end of 7 days, it's still in the record, but it's no longer in that view for that day. Does that kind of make sense how we do that? So we give you the option to where that guy coming on, he doesn't have to go back to yesterday to look and see what your notes are. If when you enter it, you put the expiration date in for tomorrow, then it'll be there. And then the last thing you can do is, if this was mine and I'm coming into my record and I've looked at it and I've put my information in. Oh, let me go to the day. Hold on 1 second. And I'm coming into my record and it's there and I'm through with it and I'm just going to say I'm done with this. I can click done, and now it kind of drops it down to the bottom, which means there's no more entries to be made into that entry. It kind of locks that entry also for you as the user. So we give you that done feature as well inside of that process. The other section is down in here is this is where your calls are dropping in from your CAD. So as calls drop in from the CAD, in your dashboard, we also give you a hyperlink. So if you click on the hyperlink, it will actually open up that NIFRS incident. So you can go directly to that call from the dashboard to start documenting your NIFRS incident on that response. So just a few features we have in the system. Other widgets are there. You can put widgets in to where if you have training assigned to you, it'll show you what training is assigned to you. It'll show you how many training hours you've had from this current month for the current year. So if you're a firefighter and you want to see your training that's documented and you know you've done training all shift, but your lieutenant has not entered that training, you can kind of nudge him to say, hey, I know we did training, but I was showing no training hours this month. Can you kind of put my training in? So different things that we can do inside of the dashboard that give you information about the organization. So any questions about FireWorks as far as your login, your profile, how we do our ribbons, general navigation? Is everybody good? Anything about the dashboard? Another feature we have up here in the top is you'll notice we have an instant messaging feature to where you can actually send messages. You can create groups so you can communicate back and forth inside of our software. We don't show this, well, we do show this, but the key thing we tell people is that you have to be logged in for the instant messaging to work. Where we've kind of used this and seen departments, because this is a fairly new feature, we've seen departments that basically have, for example, in my department, you don't log in your apparatus in FireWorks as you, the person, because each one of our units has a login. So what we're able to do is we'll have that messenger open and we're logged in as one truck. We can send messages to other trucks while we're out and about, hey, are y'all grabbing lunch today? No, we're grabbing lunch today, whatever it might be. And that's what they use it for. Because when they're out in their trucks, they have their FireWorks open all the time. And they kind of use that messaging feature to communicate without going over radios or going over cell phones. It's just another way that they use to communicate. So it's a feature we have. Some departments say, well, it's nice, but I'd rather call them on the cell phone. That's great. It's just a way we have. And in that process, you can come in and you can add a group text to where we can put all of the apparatus into one group. So I could blast a message to all the trucks to say, hey, yada, 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 what about this, whatever. And then you'll be able to have that information as well. So that's the feature we have inside of our system that deals with messaging inside of FireWorks. So we've gone through the general process and how to operate inside of FireWorks. The next thing to talk about is things that we have to document during our shift. And the first thing we'll talk about is how do I document my training? Training inside of FireWorks is documented in a couple of different ways. So if I come and click on training inside of my system, it's going to open up to our training page and give you process of what's there. So first, you'll notice that bulletin board that we had on the dashboard is also available in the training side. And then on the left side of your process, you'll note it where it says today's events. Does anybody have anything on the left side that says today's events? Yep. So you should have a training class there, correct? So if you have a training class there, that means that that training has been assigned to you as an individual member of the department. So when you click on that, it should say play. And if you hit play, it will actually open up that training class. So this is the first way that we're allowed to document and assign training inside of our system. Commonly, if we assign a training class to someone individually, I need to stop. Nope, we're good. Okay, so if we assign training to you individually, when you open it up and hit play, there's commonly going to be a video link because we had a video, and your training will consist of reviewing that video. And then once you review that video, it will allow you to complete that training session. That training session may also have a test that you have to take. So once you complete the video, there may be a little bar that says take test, and then you can take the test, and once you complete the test, you can save that training as well. So that's the first way that we allow for training to be documented, is if it's assigned in your system, you'll notice that it's in your system and you can click on it and take that training class. The second way to do it is basically you can click right here on the top where it says calendar and go to the calendar, and then now it's going to show you training that's in the system. By default, when you click training that you participated in. If you want to see other trainings that other people have participated in, you should have a button right here that says show all events. And when you slide that slider over to show all events, your calendar should kind of expand. And you'll notice that I'm not assigned to a training class, but right here in my calendar, I can see that there's a training class here and a training class here. When training has been completed, you will notice that it will be done on that green stripe. When training has partially completed, you'll notice that the stripe is red-green. So some of you that have that training assigned to you this morning have completed it, and some of you have not completed it. So this is where the training division, if something is assigned, they're able to see if everybody participated in the training or not. So this is another visual cue that we allow in that process. If I wanted to add training, and I want to come in here and say this morning from roughly 8 to 9, I did some training myself. I read an article on tactics and strategy or whatever it might be. I can grab that block range, and when I release it, it's going to ask me what I would like to do. I can tell it that I want to assign a training class that I completed individually. Or I can tell it that I want to enter a training class that my crew completed together. Example, company training. So if I'm going to document it for my crew, I would click multiple staff, and it's next going to ask me what class did I do, and I can come in here and say, well, I did this training right here on EPR, and you'll notice that when I select that, it puts my time that I spent on the training. If the notes were entered into the system by the training division or whoever set up the class, they would be there pre-populated. So I don't have to put a description of what I did. All I need to do is add my personnel. So I would come into here and say, I want to add my crew. And when I click add, I can basically grab this slider that says, I'm going to add from today's roster. And then if I did it at a station, I could pick a station and the roster will show me who's at that station. If I did it on an apparatus, give me a truck number. Is that 41? I can say that there's my engine, and it's going to give me that list of who I'm picking for the training class. If I have my list that's correct, I can click add all, and it's going to move the people from the right side to the left side. So those are the people that I'm documenting this training for. And then once I moved them to the left side, if I've forgotten somebody, I can come back in here and I can adjust my filter out, and then I can come in here and I can just pick whoever I want to pick from the list, and it's going to move them from the right to the left. Once I have my list of people that attended the training on the left side, I click Save Changes, and I click Save and Done. And when I do that, it's going to tell me that it's going to mark this as a completed training assignment and put it into my system. So you'll notice that we have the one that shows done that we manually entered. We have the one below it that has been scheduled for anybody to complete, and we can document that. Now, knowing how company officers sometimes like to schedule their day, I need to show you this feature. If I want to do that training in the middle of the day, I can open it up. I can grab my crew. Let's say I did EPR training. I can grab my crew that did it and say, yep, that's who I'm adding. And I go to hit save and done, and you'll notice it gives me an error. You cannot show a completed training in our system until the start time is past the time that you're entering as your start time. So I could go in at 12:01 and save this as completed training, but until 12 o'clock today, I cannot save this as training that was completed. So I don't know if your current systems let you load in what you're doing for the whole day in the morning so you can walk away and do it. We will not let you document a training class as completed until that class has started, the time-wise. So just be aware of how we can do that process. Now, what you can do is you can click save, and that saves that in a system as a scheduled training event. And then after you finish the training, you can go back in, open it back up, and just click save and done, and it's over with. So depending on how you manage your day in the station as a company officer, just be aware in our system, in our platform, we're not going to let you preload a training event and call it completed. You can preload it and save it, which means it's scheduled, but you cannot save and done unless the start time has already passed. Kind of make sense? Okay. And then the last thing you can do inside of here is, let's say I want to add some training in. I did a block training right there. And let's say I did some training and I did something on ground ladders. I can hit add and play. and it tells me that I want to do it. And when I do that, hit add and play, it basically allows me, if there was a document here to review, it would show me the document that I need to read to complete this training. If there was a test in this section, it would have a symbol that says, here's your test. And then if there was a video, right here in the bottom, there would be a video for me to click on to watch that video session. So that's kind of how we would document that inside of our system. And then when I'm finished, I would click save and done, and it's going to ask me to validate the time to make sure it's right. I can say I did from 7:30 to 8 o'clock or whatever it might be, and then I can click OK, it's done, and it shows that I did some self-training on my own. Just to show an example, I'm going to come over here and document training, and I'm going to come over here to document one of my own. I'm going to grab sexual harassment. And this gives you an example of a pre-populated training session. You'll notice right here, it says there is SCORM content. You notice right here, it says take assignment test. This is basically a preloaded online training class that is interactive, that it would open that class up. There's a pop-up blocker blocking it, that you would watch that interactive video. When you're finished watching that video, you would take the test, and then you can complete the training. Oh. So that's kind of how we handle that inside of our system. All right, so I hit the wrong button and logged myself out, so I'm gonna log myself back in. Y'all need a coffee while I log back in? I'm back in already. Too late, you missed it. A couple of things to show you in training. All of you guys have what's called the user center. And the user center is where you can go back and review training and activities that you participated in. We allow you to see any training that you've completed by clicking on assignments. You'll notice there's a class I have that's either been scheduled or completed. And then under my history, it will show you a history of your training that has been completed by you in the department. You can pick your history by multiple dates for calendar years. We go all the way back to 1970. So if your training record is in there for multiple years, you can go back and pick a year, and then you can actually export your training record to an Excel spreadsheet without having to call anybody to get a list of your training classes that you've completed. So we provide all users with that user center. And then here's another link to that library we talked about earlier, to where inside of here you can find different types of videos that can be watched that are used in training inside of our software. So that's our training component and how we document training. Yes, sir.
Activities history, once we start getting a bunch of data entries inside of it, is it going to track our hours as far as facility hours, give you a total, company hours, and give you a total?
Yes. Yes. So the same thing is in that user center.
Yeah.
You'll have access to something called certifications. And in this section called certifications, one will pop up to say ISO officer, or it'll say Florida Commission certification. When you expand that certification, it will show you how many facility hours you've earned, how many company hours you earned, how many officer hours you earned in the current year. So it keeps track of that. And then you can actually also have that as a widget on your dashboard.
I'm going to be able to track my net.
Yes. So in the admin center, you'll be able to go into the admin center and you'll be able to come in here and you can add activities, add assignments. We'll need to make a modification to this. There'll be one called user admin. You'll be able to select the name of your person and you'll be able to track their certifications and all that as well.
Not just one person at a time, can I do a group of people at a
It's going to be one at a time when you look at that, but you can also have it set to where you can have a report that can be sent to you telling you monthly what the status is of your personnel. And that will be something that if you say, I want to know each month the status of the people on my crew, John or someone in admin can create a report that'll be in an Excel spreadsheet, and you can get an email sent to you automatically without opening the software that'll list your people and tell you how many hours they've made and what they got left to get. Yeah, so that's a simple process that can be done if you'd like to see that. Other lieutenants and company officers just go to the user admin, they pick their guy, look at it, say, okay, he's good. They pick their and go from there. The thing about that feature is when you pick that person, not only can you see their certifications, you can also see their training assignments. So if there was a training class assigned to that firefighter that he has not completed, you can see, wait, you were assigned this 2 months ago and you still haven't done that class. You can walk out of your office and say, hey, you need to go take this class and get it done. So all of that can be done from the admin center, because we can add a section right here that says user admin. And when it says users, it'll give you a search bar to put the name of the person you're looking for. And then you can select the person. You can see their assignments, their certifications, and everything. So we will let you see that. Yes, sir. Okay. You can only see yours in the widget, correct? That is exactly right. Yes, sir. So, and that's the beauty of the widgets. In some departments, you can also preload a widget to where you can create a dashboard that is preset and tell everybody use this dashboard. And that dashboard they could put in their list of dashboards and click on it, and it may show just their training certifications, training completions, and all of that. So, but you can add that to your personal process, and there is a widget that talks about certification progress. You can put that on your dashboard, and it will show each individual person what their hours are year to date. Okay, any other questions about training from anyone in the room? All right, let's take that 5-minute coffee break, and let's do a real 5-minute coffee break and not a fire department 5-minute coffee break. And then we'll jump into hydrants and pre-plans. So the next part we'll talk about is being able to go out and conduct pre-plans on protected properties. Inside of FireWorks, we allow your fire marshal's office to actually manage and maintain information on buildings that they do inspections on. But they can also send those properties, and we can see those properties on the operations side as properties that we may need to go and do pre-plans on. Two different worlds in the fire department. Your inspection side, when an inspection is conducted, they're looking at conducting a life safety code inspection for public safety, building security, building integrity for code enforcement. On the pre-plan side, we're looking at a building for in the event of a response of a fire or incident to that location, information that we need to gather as a fire department that will help us maintain our personnel integrity, our personnel safety in the event of a disaster. So we focus on a different look. We're not there to say that their exit lights are working. We're not there to say that their extinguishers are tagged correctly. That's the fire marshal. We're there to make sure there's no issues that are going to cause us problems when it's flame coming out of one or two sides and we're pulling in. We're looking at it from that perspective. So that's what we call a pre-plan inside of our system. It's a pre-fire plan or pre-incident plan. Inside of FireWorks, pre-plans exist under the main ribbon of properties, and you'll notice under the sub-ribbon, there's a section called pre-plans. By default, we will show you all pre-plans that are scheduled for the current year. But what you have the capabilities of doing is collecting here on what's called the advanced search, and you can come in here and say, I'm just looking for station 41 and C shift, and that's what I need to know what I have that has to be pre-planned this year. And you'll notice you'll get a list of properties that are scheduled for you to pre-plan. At that point, if you want to see this in a map view, you could click on the map view and we'll split the screen and we'll show you where those properties are, and you're able to now look at it to what properties you're scheduled to go pre-plan inside of your system. Once you look at it at a map view, you have the option of clicking on a property here, and when you click on that property, we can let you go into the pre-plan to complete the pre-plan, and that's the way you can do it. The other way you can calculate which building you want to pre-plan is by looking at your list and then coming in there and grabbing a building. We'll just grab this select medical rehab and we'll do a pre-plan on this building. So you'll notice when I selected pre-plan, it brought up our pre-plan process. It'll show you that there's a pre-plan number, the date it's due. My name will drop down in there because I'm logged into the system. And it'll show you that this pre-plan was scheduled for station 41 in shift C. At that point, you'll notice that as I scroll down the page, it next shows me what is called our tactical summary. And these are items that are collected in the pre-plan that are considered to be those need-to-know items. So if there are bad issues with this building or things that that first-aid company needs to know about, we put them in what's called our tactical summary so that you're able to see that information right away. And then once we get to that section, you'll notice that as I scroll down into these individual sections of the pre-plan, this is what I flow through in order to update my pre-plan on this property. And the first section we look at is what's called basically the map view. Inside of the map view, I'm able to make a bunch of changes to the property. So the first thing y'all notice is it shows me where the property is. And if I would put this marker maybe where the front door of the property is instead of on the top of it, by clicking the move property, I could come and say, I want to put this marker maybe right here in front of it or at the street level to turn into it, whichever works best for your department. So I can come in here and say, well, I want to put this location right here, and it'll ask me if I want to move it. And I say yes, it's now going to move the location of that property to right there. So that when I open it up in the future, it will center on that location. Once I move the property, I can turn it off, and then I can change the view and do whatever I want to do with the property. Other things that happen in map view is that I can put information on this property in the pre-plan that will be visible when I'm responding to a fire or anything at this facility in what we call response mode inside of FireWorks. So for example, I may want to add the location of the FDC. All of that is called markers inside of our system. So I can come in here and say, I want to come into this building and I want to put my location of the FDC, and my FDC may be, I don't know where, I'll just throw it somewhere. Maybe my FDC is right here on this side of the building. I can drop that as a symbol when I'm conducting my pre-plan, and that will show me the location of the fire department connection. If I want to also drop into there the location of possibly the electrical shutoff, I can come and grab the electric feature and say, also, I want to let you know that over here is where the main electrical controls are for the property as well. So we will allow you, while you're conducting your pre-plan, to take what may have been text documents or words or sentences explaining where something's at. We'll let you drop that on this property as a symbol or what we call a marker, and it'll be visible for you to see inside of that process. So as you'll notice, there's all kind of markers that are built in inside of there. Well, the next thing we look at is, what about information dealing with hazardous materials? So if for some reason there is a hazardous material stored in the building and you want to indicate where they have that storage, I can come in here and I can document by dropping a placard that, bless you, that there is a hazardous material stored in a certain location of that building as well. So we allow you to create markers and put information on top of buildings. You can also come into our system, and one of the other features we have is one marker that we use a lot in our area is we have a marker, and it's now built into the system. It wasn't there before. That's called a no interior fire attack. If you have that structure in your area, and because of maybe it's a lightweight truss roof construction, and you want to have it so that in the event that you have a working fire there, that you don't want to go inside, or the guys need to know to stay close to the exits, go into a system, you can come in there and mark this section of the building as basically no interior fire attack in that process, and it will show that symbol as well on side of that property. So just some features we have that you can do when you're marking a building and you're documenting a building for during the pre-plan. If this was a facility that maybe had an issue, and let's say the issue was it was very limited as to where you can set up your aerial truck, because maybe they have parts of it to where the street is very poor in the condition. You drop your jacks, you're going to drop them down even if you put pads. Or maybe there's an area to where if you set the ladder truck there, you get best optimal reach of the aerial. Y'all use center mounts or rear mounts? Center mounts. You got one rear. You know, I don't back an aerial truck into a fire scene, so I'm a center mount guy. So either way you go, you can operate. So you may want to have a process, and you may have a situation on your system to where you can come in here and say, this is the area that I want to set up for basically aerial. So now I can document on that drawing where the aerial setup location would be. In regards to multi-story buildings, 3, 4, 5-story buildings, if y'all set up collapse zones, you can put a polygon and say this area is a collapse zone, and your company officer should realize that's not where I want to park my engine company. So information like that you can share and you can document inside of your pre-plan. The other thing we did with polygons is we went into polygons, and if it's a school situation, working with law enforcement and active shooter situations, they'll commonly designate a command area. So you can take on your pre-plan and document where your active shooter command area is going to be during your pre-plan. And when we get to the NIFRS incident a little bit later, you'll see how all of this that we do in a non-emergency tour of that facility relates over into an emergency response. So that's the purposes in our software, because we want you to use the software. Information that you capture in a pre-plan is available to you when you're responding to that incident at that building. And that's kind of how we do that process. So once you looked at and you've added all of your information, the next thing you can look at inside of our system is figuring out, okay, now I need to know where my hydrants are. So I can come and I can say, on this property, this is going to be my primary hydrant for this building. So I can click that as my primary hydrant, and then I can come right here and I can say this will be my secondary hydrant, and then I can come down here and look at the property, scroll back up, and I can look at the property and say, okay, now I want to designate my next hydrant and say, well, I'll make that my third hydrant. And when I do that, it actually will list those hydrants under my property details as this is the first hydrant, second hydrant, third hydrant to select, but it will also measure the distance from that hydrant marker to the actual property marker. So if I say, well, if it's doing that, do I really want to put the property marker at the driveway, or should I kind of put the property marker where we're actually going to access the building in response? And that's totally up to you guys. You know, we'll let you come in there and we'll say, okay, well, wait a minute. Since this is going to be, I'm going to actually park my first in engine right here, so I can come back and say, I want to put this as basically my location and update it, and then allow it to actually do that process moving forward. So once I'm through with all of the marker stuff, I can now look at the rest of my pre-plan. So the first thing that we capture is we allow you to capture your contacts. Inside of our system, we provide you on the contacts page a primary contact, a secondary contact, and then below that, an actual contact for the owner as well. So if the primary contact is also the owner of the building, then I can just copy them down from contact 1. If the primary contact is not the owner of the building, I can enter in here the owner of the building. And then you'll notice you can designate an email for them. You can designate it what type of owner it is in that process. And that's where you can enter your first 3 contacts. If you have more than 3 contacts, we allow you to also enter additional contacts. So this is where you can have a fourth, a fifth, a sixth, a 10th, a 20th. You can go as deep as you want to go and have contacts for the property inside of our system. After you've updated your contacts, you can update your property details. And this is where we provide you all of the information about the property. You'll notice the name. If there is a building name or a building number, let's say it's a complex, and in this complex there's 5 buildings, I can put the name of the complex and put building 500, building 300, building 200, and so forth. I can document what type of property it is, occupant load, the status of the property, all of the demographics of the property, including square footage and so forth that may be listed in that property. And then you'll notice below that what we have at the bottom are 3 primary hydrants and the distance that was calculated when I selected on that hydrant and said make that my primary, my second one, and my third one. So we ran those calculations, and I always tell fire departments that this is as the crow flies. It's not as the truck drives. So just be prepared for that in that process. Once you finish with your property data, if it was a multi-story building and you had different things on different floors, you can separate out the floors and put information about each floor separately inside of our property detail. If you haven't done it already, you can create and document your actual OVAP rating for the building, which is where we calculate the risk rating on that building. There's 5 sections with multiple questions to be answered. So if the fire marshal's office is doing this during the inspection, then it should be completed when you do your pre-plan. If the fire marshal's office is relying on you as company officers to do this, then you would do this during your pre-plan. Once you do it, it pretty much stays until the building goes away. It has to be done one time. Next to that is the markers. You notice these are the markers that we just put on the map. It shows that they're there. And then here are attachments. So if you have any sketches or any plot plans or any floor plans that are in a PDF or a JPEG or any type of Word doc, any type of document, you can click here, and when you click add to file, if it's on the computer that you're actually working on, you can upload that from that computer. If you're doing this on your tablet or a device that has a camera, and you need to take a picture of something that you need to point out as an issue with this building, I can basically click on the camera icon, and it will turn and use the camera on your device, and you could take a picture of maybe whatever's blocking that FDC, because the FDC is hidden and you need to let somebody know how to find the FDC. So you can take a picture. If you use the camera feature inside of the software, it does not save the picture on your device, it uploads it to the pre-plan. So just another feature that we have in this process to document those things that you might want to document during your pre-plan. If there are hazardous materials, I can come in here and I can add the product that's there. And you'll notice I had oxygen here on this building. So I can come down here and grab oxygen. And you'll notice because oxygen is in the Cameo database, when I open up, it will actually bring me out to the emergency response guide. And then I can see that page on the emergency response guide. So we're able to not only capture the chemical that maybe you need to document inside of that building because we put a placard on the roof, we can also provide you with information from the emergency response guide about that particular product that you indicated inside of our system. And then we get to the additional sections, and we have a place for remarks. This is where you'll need to enter in if there are any issues that you need to tell other responding companies when they respond here. You need to drop that into your remarks section. because that will become part of the tactical summary, so that when they're responding to that building, the first thing they will see in response mode is going to be those remarks. So if there's limited access, or if there's an issue to where you can only get access with a ladder truck on one side of the building, or let's say there's a series of bad dogs that rove the place, security dogs, anything along those lines. If there's a hazard that's going to block your access, if there's a gate code, do y'all deal with gate codes? We deal with gate codes in all of our places. You know, is they'll put the gate code in there. So any things of those information can be documented and updated every time you conduct a pre-plan on that property, so that now in response mode, when you open up that property, that's the first thing you're going to see. So you can put that under your remarks section. And then once you complete the remarks, we give you other sections. There's a place for access. You'll notice here there's a gate code feature, lightweight truss. All of these questions are built in by your fire marshal's office. But if there's something that you need to have specifically documented that you guys see as a need, it can be added to your access area. We allow you to document your 4 sides of your exposures. And then the bottom section, we just show you a history of permits, a history of pre-plans, and a history of responses to that location. And as more calls are dropped into the system, that history will grow in that process. Once you've gone through the sections of your pre-plan and you documented your pre-plan, down here at the bottom, if there's remarks you need to let other personnel know about the property, you can put remarks in here. And then you don't require a signature, so you can skip that. If you want to send this pre-plan to somebody because there's something that's odd about this building, I can come in here and I can add an email. I can grab a staff list of anybody that needs to see it. Or if there is a list that's built in here, I can grab that list as well. And then to finish it up, I would just document how long I was on site. Was I there for 1 hour, 2 hours, whatever it was, put the number of minutes and hit submit. And when you hit submit, it takes all the information that you just updated in that pre-plan and saves it into our database. It takes this pre-plan and it schedules it 12 months. You'll notice it's going to 12/29 of 23. It'll schedule it to the same station or apparatus, whichever one y'all choose to do, but it will take it from C shift and give it to A shift. And then the year after that, it will take it from A shift and give it to B shift. And then the year after that, it'll rotate back around to C shift. So that the way we do our shift rotation is, if that's a building in your first due area, you're going to visit that building every 3 years. But in a 3-year cycle, in theory, you should have been able to visit all of your buildings that were assigned to you as a first due area in the department. And that's kind of how we manage pre-plans inside of FireWorks. So I can go in here and hit submit. And now all of that information is getting updated in the process. And it actually is saved into the database. And as soon as it's saved, if you run a call there 5 minutes from now, that information will be available to you. So that's our workflow and how we handle pre-plans. The last shortcut to show you is, you notice, instead of seeing all of the pre-plans this year, I just have the pre-plans for my station and my shift. If I want to save that filter so that the next time I log in, I don't have to go create it, I can click on advanced search, and you'll notice that it shows the station and the shift. I can click on the pencil, give it a name, and I can say station 41C, and I can say I want to save that as my default filter moving forward. And when I click save, it just saved that as my filter. So when I log in, and I click on pre-plans, it's going to only show me those pre-plans that are scheduled this year for Station 41 and C Shift. So everyone in the room has the capabilities of building their own default search parameters so that every time you log in, all you're going to see is what's there. And then if I move from C Shift to B Shift, I can go back into that parameter and just make a change. I don't know why you'd want to go from C Shift to B Shift, but I'll just say that. Any questions about conducting pre-plans inside of FireWorks? Yes.
Type of polling capability. If they don't have their exit plan posted, so that in the past, we've had to go through and do like a quick sketch of the inside of a small building. If it's like been partitioned off of some sort, so that we have an idea of what the layout of the inside looks like.
Yeah. We do not have a sketch feature inside of our software. You can either do it on another software and add it as an attachment. The other thing that we have it capable of doing is, and some departments have done this, is that when you go into here, and if you have a sketch of the property, you can actually go into the map view. And one of the things in map view that we have is we have the feature of adding what's called a property image. And we've had some departments to where they've added the sketch and laid it on top of the building. So we will allow you to do that as well. So if you have a sketch of the property, or you get a floor plan as a PDF from the architect or the contractor or from the management company, you could actually take that PDF and layer it over the top of that building if you need to see the individual floor plans. But we do not have a sketching feature inside of our software as a default. Yeah.
Common, or
you'll find that in what most places have that use the equipment and use the software, they like the capabilities of our system in the map view that you're able to actually put labels on top of it. And they will always, most of the departments have said, okay, there's no way to do it here, that's fine. You could always come over here and add it as an attachment in the attachment section. We experimented with something called Google Sketch. So there is a what's called Google Sketch that you can get in the Google Map view. It wasn't of the quality that we wanted to put into our system, so we did not have that as an option. Should Google Sketch become a stronger product, then you might be able to sketch it from the Google Map view if you wanted to go in and sketch a building. But we saw it as being more of a hindrance to firefighters than a benefit to firefighters in that process.
attachments, if you didn't have that in attachment, they were, if this is something we have to continue to improve with. Yeah, I personally like what you got here.
Right.
Something that we have to continue to put into a pre-plan, and it might just have to be something that we draw it out on a piece of paper, take a picture and put it in with the tablet.
Right. Some departments, there is a software that's called Apex Sketch. And Apex, I have departments that actually use Apex Sketch, and it is truly a sketching software to where you could sketch a building, and then you could print that out as a JPEG image, and you could throw that into the attachments, or you could take that image and layer on top of the building. I have other departments that have used, they've used a PowerPoint and did sketches on PowerPoint. They used any other type. I had one department that did all their stuff in a Word document and just drew lines in a Word document and saved it. So there's all kind of variations. It depends on The key thing is how easy or how hard you want it to be, because when you start getting into sketching programs, they can be pretty difficult to learn, because especially if they bring in a lot of the architectural components and a lot of the codes that are used in the architectural world, it can be more of a headache. We played with Google Sketch. We bounced it around, thought, what are your thoughts about it? And it was okay. If they did a few things to enhance it, and of course we don't work for Google, we use their product, it would probably be a good solution. And in the process, there would have been a feature to turn on Google Sketch and you could actually go in and draw parts around the building. It just wasn't that robust yet from that perspective. Okay, good question. Any other questions about pre-plans? And you'll notice this pre-plan here, somebody has put some drawings in it, and it's just a matter of what you want to do in documenting your drawings. So the next thing is our hydrants. So if you'll notice in the hydrant section, this is where you can go in and document your hydrant inspections. So all of your hydrant inspections are broken down into our system, and they'll be scheduled as well. So the same kind of process I did inside of hydrants is I can come in here, and if I want to look at all the hydrants that are scheduled, I can come in here and add all the hydrants in. But if I wanted to use my default that I built in, I can come in here and say, I want to build in one for station 41 C shift. And I can come in here and say, show me the ones at station 41 and the ones on C shift. Save that as my default search. And I can have the same thing. So now you'll notice when I do that, it only shows me my hydrants for station 41 in C shift. If I want to see where they're at on a map, I can, same way, flip the map view, and you'll notice it'll show me where my hydrants are that need to be inspected. As I drive to that area and I go out to those hydrants, what is this? Oh, that's something in Microsoft. How do you get rid of that? There we go. If I want to look at the map view and I want to go to that area, I can basically zoom into that area and it's going to show me where the hydrants are that I have to conduct on my inspection. You'll notice that all of the hydrants have indications of where they're located at. As I zoom into those areas, I'm able to validate if the hydrant is in the right spot or not. So if the hydrant is in the right location, like this one in the middle of the road, it's pretty cool, it's okay. If the hydrant is not in the right location, I can actually move that hydrant over here where it's supposed to be while I'm conducting the hydrant inspection. So I can move the location of the hydrant during the inspection. When I move the location of the hydrant, it will update the longitude and latitude in our database. So you'll have current locations with the current longitude and latitude for your hydrants. So let's say I'm going to do an inspection on this hydrant right here. If I click on the hydrant, I can click go to test. And when I click on go to test, it's going to ask me that I need to do a general test on the hydrant. And then it'll open up that hydrant inspection for me. At that point, it's going to document that once again, I'm the lieutenant, that's my name, and then my station and my shift. And you'll notice that it's asking me to go in there and do my test. The first thing it'll show you under the hydrant section is basically information about the hydrant. So this is in a view only mode. So you'll notice that when I'm looking at the hydrant, you'll notice what's missing from this hydrant detail. There is no street name. So because the hydrant was dropped in by longitude, if I know the name of the street, and I can see the name of the street right here in map view, and it tells me that's on Churchill Downs, I can basically come up here, hit edit, and it'll allow me to come in and document Churchill Downs as a street name, if I can find it. And by doing that, I can basically save the record. If I know what the cross street is, you'll notice it is Downers, I guess. Is that a name of a street? Downers Grove. I can come right here and I can put the cross street of Downers Grove in the system as well to update the information on that hydrant. So some hydrants, when they're dropped in, they're going to be dropped in by the longitude and latitude. If it's a new development, there may not be a street address, right? Because there's no houses built there and there's no addresses yet. When you go back to inspect it, you can actually update the information to make sure it's where it's supposed to be inside of that process. So I can put it in a zone, I can put it in a fire district, and I can put it box, which is also considered a station. A box is a station in our system. So if this is station 40, fire district is 40, and then I can put the zone of where it is. I can update any and all of that information. And then if there's any notes I need to put about this hydrant, located in the bushes or located behind the brick wall at the entrance to the subdivision, I can put that information in as well when I'm updating my hydrant. And then you'll notice here under more details, I can put the make, the model. If I have information about the hydrant type, the year of the model, valve size, main type, stream size, and so forth, I can actually put that information in. Also, is it a left turning hydrant or right turning hydrant? You may not have the difficulty of that problem, but in my area, if it's hydrants by a private water company, they just pick the hydrant in the ground, and we have some hydrants that are left turning and some hydrants that are right turning. And it's important for us to know which way the hydrant is going to work inside of the system. Once I've updated the data, I can click Save. And the next thing you'll notice I can do in my inspection is I can actually change the location of the hydrant. So if I need to change the hydrant location, I would click on the box to drag it. If you're doing this on your iPad and you're standing over the hydrant, you can click Update Hydrant by My Location, and it will triangulate off of your iPad and move the hydrant to that location. If you're doing this from the cab of your truck on the MDT, it's going to show me a map, and I can come here and I can drag the hydrant to where it's actually supposed to be, and then uncheck the box. After I've done the DAG details and I've done the map view, I'll next go to the inspection to where I can talk about what I did on that hydrant. I flushed it, it was maintenanced. If you have a system that says, does it have 2.5 and 5-inch connections, because it's a standard hydrant, I can document that. If it's just a double pumper, I may not check the 2.5-inch connection. If it has to have an ID tag, was the ID tag present? If it has to have reflected tape, was the reflective tape present on the device? And then if it has to have a road marker, was the road marker present? So you can document that information. Then if you actually greased or lubricated, and if your inspection includes a pressure test, are y'all familiar with an NFPA pressure test? Okay. If y'all conduct a pressure test while you're doing your inspection, you can also click you do a pressure test. So this is not a flow. This is just an inspection, an annual inspection on a hydrant. The other thing you'll notice here is in some departments, they require you when you do your annual inspection or your pressure test to do your pressure test with a gauge on the hydrant. So while you do your pressure test, you can capture that static PSI and enter it in. Some departments capture that, some departments don't. We give you the capability of capturing that information. If while you're doing your inspection, you find a problem, I can click on the box here, and by clicking this checkbox, not only will it show me problems that have been found, but it will also show me a history of prior problems that may have been found and fixed. So if I'm adding a new problem to this hydrant during my inspection, I could come right here, I could pick the hydrant selection, and then I can document what the problem was. And then one other thing I will add into that is that if you're doing this from a device that has a camera, I can click on the attachments feature and I can take a picture of that issue as well. And when that problem is emailed, the picture goes with the problem. So whoever you're sending it to, if you need to show that it's missing a 2.5-inch cap, or it's missing the outlet for the 2.5-inch discharge, so it's a major problem, you can take a picture as well as describe it here in writing. Once I've documented my problem, I can click on email problems, and over here in the mailing list, I could select, there's going to be one called hydrant issues. I would select hydrant issues, and then I would hit send. And what that automatically does is it sends an email to the person in the department who monitors hydrant issues and to the external company that is supposed to fix hydrant issues. So they both get an email directly from your inspection advising them that there was a hydrant issue and this is a problem that you found. After you've documented your problem, if you were doing a flow test, you'll notice you can enter all of your flow test data here and it would calculate for you. If you weren't doing a flow test, you could come down and document any general remarks about this hydrant inspection. It does show you the history if you're into seeing the history. I mean, it allows you to see that information of the past inspection. If you want to send this hydrant report to somebody, you can do that. And then at the very bottom, you'll notice you can come in here and talk about how many minutes you were on site doing that hydrant inspection, and then hit submit. When you hit submit, it saves that inspection as an inspection. It schedules it for next year. You notice 12/8 of 23. And then when we turn the switch on, it'll move it from C shift that did it this year to A shift, and they'll have it scheduled for them next year. So the same shift rotation component we do with pre-plans, we can also do with hydrants. And from earlier meetings with the department has decided they want the shift rotation component, so that a guy's not going back to the same hydrant or the same building every year. They're actually reviewing more of their first due area inside of that process. So I'll come in here and I'll hit submit. And basically at that point, it actually will save that information for the hydrant. And when it updates everything, it removes it from my list of what needs to be done. And my list gets a little bit smaller. So I went from 62 entries to 61 entries for station 41 on C shift. Yes, sir. Question. No, sir. This is not training. No, well, ISO frowns very, very much if you try to make a maintenance task a training task. Now, I will tell you that conducting a pre-plan is considered company training, but not doing maintenance on a hydrant, which is really what you're doing is you're doing hydrant maintenance. You're not doing hydrant training. So you can, and so this is what I do in my department, and what we did in my department is, and this is not EPR, this is fire service. In my organization, when I was a deputy chief and I was over training, ISO accreditation and all of that, we actually had our guys that when they left to go do pre-plans and they got back into the station, they went into the training section and they added, because under our company training, we have a category called pre-plans. and they would go in and they would add their crew from the time they left the station until the time they backed into the station. That would be their pre-plan hours. Okay. Now what we did for ISO is we capped those number of hours. So they couldn't have, out of 192 hours of company training, there couldn't be 150 hours of pre-planning. So we did an internal cap of pre-planning hours of 40 hours a year, so that we kind of rolled it out to where if you look at 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, that's usually about, in our department, how long pre-planning took our guys to knock out in that process. So there's a way in our system in EPR to where we could put limits on a class, and we allowed our guys to enter it every time they did it, but it only counted the first 40 hours towards their ISO company training, but the rest of the hours were also kept so that we were able to track how many hours they actually did pre-planning, but only 40 hours counted towards their ISO company training. So,
is there a way to automate in the system around all those people? Is there a way to automate in the system that person that's standing at pre-planned hours, or minutes spent during pre-plan automatically goes to that person's manager?
so here's the first part of that. When you're conducting a pre-plan inside of the software, there is not a place for you to list all of the members on the crew that are conducting the pre-plan. It typically in the system, it allows you to assign one name to that pre-plan on the pre-plan side. That's why we want to do the training one, so that it documents all of the crew, not just that one person. So, and really in the system for training, and we showed it earlier, it takes you about what, 2 minutes to enter a training class? You know, so it's especially with the fact that you're all using a roster, and you can narrow your roster down to an individual truck and just click add all these people. And we did it from 10 o'clock till 2 o'clock. We were out doing pre-plans. So I know the concept, but the first process is in the pre-plan, we only attach one name to a pre-plan. Commonly, that's the company officer responsible for documenting all of the information. And then we attach the whole crew to the training component of a pre-plan. Yes, sir.
You bring up about, if you call them the smart captain, that you want to call it at 7-Eleven, pre-plan time.
Sure. So pre-plans are scheduled during the year. So let me throw a scenario that our guys started doing, which I thought was just ingenious, is they will go out on an alarm call, and it's my first due area, and it was nothing to the alarm call. We pulled up, they canceled, it was a faulty call. They're already out in the district, they're already at the property. They would log in because their system's already up. They would pop over to the property section, and if that's a building that they had to pre-plan and the weather was nice and they're there, they would clear the call and immediately tell communications that they're out in the district on a pre-plan. They would open up that pre-plan while they're right there and go ahead and do it. Because we schedule pre-plans in our department on an annual basis. So if you open up January 1 in my department, all of the pre-plans for that particular company on that shift are sitting there ready for them to be completed. So what our guys started doing is, yeah, they got pre-plans to do, but during the year, if they ran an alarm call, they would go check and see if that's one they have to pre-plan. Since they're already there, they just tapped off clear on the call and did their pre-plan while they were there and knocked it out. So it's one less that they have to do towards the end of the year. So it's just one mechanism that our guys use to where they actually use the pre-planning component to their advantage, because everything has been scheduled in that process. So that's just one example of how that can be done. Any questions on pre-planning or any questions on hydrant? All right, let's take that 5-minute break and we'll talk about incidents. So I've got 5 till 11, so be back at 11. So everything that revolves around our calls results in our incident section in that process. You'll notice in the incident section, we're going to provide you with the CAD number. Let me scroll up a little bit. And then we're going to provide you with a FireWorks incident number. We're going to provide you with an address, and then we'll tell you what the date of the call was, the time of the call was, and the station and shift as it dropped in from the CAD data. We're getting all of this initial information from your CAD system. If the CAD is not functioning, you also have the capabilities of clicking right here on a new incident, and you can manually create an incident inside of our software by just putting in as simple the CAD number and any information, an address, location. You can go to the bottom and hit save and exit, and it will show up in the list. Or you can hit go to incident, and it will open up that NIFRS incident. Where that comes in handy is that in the event that your CAD does not send a call over, or skips a call, or your CAD goes offline for whatever reason, you can still function inside of the system. And then you have features to where on the admin level, we can take that data and bring it all together into an incident report. So there's ways that we can capture that and look at that process.
So when the cat dumps the call, it doesn't duplicate it?
It will not duplicate it, correct. Well, it will duplicate it, but then there's a mechanism for us to say, okay, these are the same call, merge them together. If the call does drop in from the CAD and you're responding to that call, and I'm going to say this is a call we responded to, by clicking on the address, it opens up in our system what is called response mode. So this is where all of that information that we captured in that pre-plan are now given to you in the cab of the truck. So if you'll notice, if I zoom out a little bit on this property, you'll notice that, remember those symbols? There's those symbols that we marked on that. So if I want to go look at that property right there, and that's actually where I'm going, I can roll back here and say, look, I've got oxygen, I got a fire department connection, there's my electrical, here's a lot of information that I captured about that location that I'm going to. So information that we capture inside of there is available when we're looking at that in response mode. The other thing that comes into play with response mode is other information that we're going to allow you to see. So I'll zoom out a little bit, and I'm looking at my property here, and I'm going to say by clicking on the weather section, it's going to provide me with the current weather conditions. We subscribe to open weather in our software, and basically everywhere that has weather stations, we find the closest weather station to this address, and we give you a snapshot of their weather conditions. This is updated every 2 minutes, and we keep a 4-hour history of weather that's updated on each weather station in our system. At that point, if you needed to update it, you could actually update it, or you can close it out. We also provide you with a list of the properties that are there. So if I'm saying this was a large complex and there are multiple properties, but my call is to the Select Medical Rehab, when I click on Select Medical Rehab, it opens up my pre-plan. And at that point, you'll notice, what is the first thing at the very top of the pre-plan? That tactical summary. So if I put something into those remarks that said, hey, there's an issue here, or a gate code, or whatever, I would see that across the top of my tactical summary. And then as I scroll down through the tactical summary, all of those details that I entered in are going to be visible. And then at the very bottom, it shows me my 3 hydrants. So that information that we calculated during the pre-plan is there. And then also during that time, yes, sir.
Has the static department for the building, so that the generator comes to work.
Okay.
Put the remarks in as well, like the hydrant might be behind a pole, or it's a left turning, or right, you know, whatever, blah, blah, blah.
That will be out there in the first quarter of 2023. We're adding that component to our pre-plan details. Yes. Currently, you can click on the hydrant and see the information, but we do want to add that into the tactical summary. Yes.
Especially for the first and second.
Yep. We've already had a request from that from another department, and that's in our enhancement process. By clicking on the 3 lines here, you'll notice everything else that we documented is where? Right here. So everything that was done in that pre-plan is available to us right here in response mode. So I can see the contact information. I can see a close-up of basically the map preview over here, which shows it a little more drilled in than the response mode. And then I can also, same reason, come over here and see the risk assessment, markers, attachments. If there are any attachments, like right here is a PDF, I can open up that PDF on the property. And there's basically a printout of the whole pre-plan if I wanted to look at that and review it along with my picture. So all of that information can be documented, and in some departments, they will actually print the pre-plan as a PDF and save it as an attachment as well. And then every time it's updated, they will update the PDF. What's good about this is some people would prefer to look at it like this. And you'll notice it gives you all of the things that are there. And if I had notes on those, it would be there. But it also shows you all of the other information about the hydrants in that process. And then going back, I also have a place to look at my remarks, my hazardous materials. And from the hazmat section, I can open up that that's the hazmat that I'm looking at, that material. And you'll notice what it gives me, my link to my emergency response guide. So everything that we've documented on this incident report in the pre-plan is going to be available to you in response mode in that process. If the address is 100% match, so in this scenario, you'll notice there's a few buildings that all have the same address. If there was only one building with the one address, it would be at the top of the list, and it would be shaded kind of a tan color. So I know that that's the 100% match. So, but any one of these buildings, I can click on the description and it will open up that individual pre-plan. So not only can I open up the pre-plan for that one building, anything in that complex, I can go look at those as well to see if there's anything I need to know about this suite or this suite if I'm responding to a strip mall. So we give you that list of not only the property, but we give you the nearest properties to that location. After looking at the property information, I can get a list of what trucks have responded to the call and their times. And you'll notice the list shows both your departmental trucks, and if you had mutual aid companies coming in, it will also capture the mutual aid companies' times as well. Next to that, it will document the times, the time the call was called in, the time we were dispatched, the time we got en route, and the time the first unit arrived on the scene. And it will give you that information as well on the incident. And then if you're on an iPad or an iPhone or a device that has an active data card, you can actually spin out to Google Maps or Waze, and it would give you directions from where you're actually at to the incident address in case your data mapping in your CAD is not the best in the world. So it does allow for a couple of different features. Lastly, we show that over here on this side of the system, if it's a call on the interstate and your interstate system, which your interstate system in Florida does subscribe to the National Traffic Camera Database, by clicking on the traffic cameras, you could actually, if it is a call on the interstate, get a snapshot from the traffic cameras that are on the interstate to see what traffic flow is if you're responding on a call that has cameras in place in that process. So you can also document the nearest emergency markers in that process. So if there are the nearest emergency markers, you can bring them in. The other thing that's nice about this one right here at the top, where it says all nearest markers, what that does is if you respond to a complex, and let's say you got markers on these buildings and then markers on the buildings next to it, it will show you all of the markers for all of the properties that are in that nearest property list. So not only will you see the hazards from the building you're responding to, but you would see hazards over here, you would see hazards over there. So when you're looking at the view, it kind of shows you an area view of what your problems are and what your hazards are. So those are some of the things that comes into the process as far as documenting that in response mode. And then the last thing I always show in response mode, this is more on the fact is we're there, we're handling the job, and for some reason, this hydrant right here goes kaput, it just keels over, and I'm the BC and I got to get another truck to go catch another hydrant. I can come in here and grab the ruler, and I can say, okay, I want to use the ruler, and I can come over here and say, if I got to catch that hydrant, I can tell that next engine coming in that they're going to have to lay about 300 feet or 315 feet of hose to get to me. So if I'm the driver of that truck and my incident commander says, hey, capture this hydrant at this location and you're going to drop about 400 feet of hose, I've already calculated in my head when I drop that coupling, how many seconds do I drive to drop 400 feet? Because every driver should have learned in their course of becoming an efficient driver, if I'm dropping LDH at 10 miles an hour, how many seconds is it going to take for me to drop 400-foot lengths of LDH? So that's a normal thing that engineers should know if they're documenting and dropping their LDH at 10 miles an hour, which is the speed you're supposed to drop LDH at. That BC tells me I got to drop 400 feet. I know that's 36 seconds of travel time. So while I'm hitting 10 miles an hour, I'm counting, do, and I know that I'm there and I can drop my hose. So that's part of the process that you can also do inside of the software and document that in the response mode. Taking the pre-plan that used to sit in a book or sit in a computer in the fire station and putting it where? In that captain's jump seat. That's our move and that's our philosophy inside of dealing with FireWorks. So we've done the pre-plan, we've done the hydrant work, and now we've seen it in response mode. The call is over, and I now have to document that NIFRS incident. By basically exiting out of response mode, you'll notice that it has dropped me back into my NIFRS incident for that report. So I can click all the way over here to the left, and it begins my NIFRS report. We have designed the NIFRS report inside of FireWorks to where roughly 90% of your NIFRS incident on every call is going to be in the first column. Then if it's beyond a basic call, you may see a couple other modules pop up and it may go from 90% to basically 80%. And what I'm talking about there is if it's a structure fire, you'll have to go fill out the fire module, just like you do now. If it's a structure fire with aid given or received, you'll have to fill out the fire module and the mutual aid module. You'll notice that on a basic response, when you open up an incident inside of FireWorks, we're going to present you with the modules that are prescribed according to NIFRS, either required or optional to complete a NIFRS report. We always want to start in the top left corner, and our philosophy is top to bottom, left to right. And if you keep that workflow in place, when you get to the end, to the authorization section, You either have to enter one name or you have to check a box. So let's walk through a report to show you how we can document that. Inside of our system, the first thing you'll do is grab your incident type, and I'll make this a building fire just to make it kind of easy on that well, let's make it an alarm call. Let's put it an alarm call. So you'll notice that in your database, we have arranged your incident types based upon the most commonly used incident type. They're not in numerical order. We're continually watching your database, and as calls are entered every day, we're juggling these numbers. So where the most commonly used incident type is always going to be at the top of the list. And then it goes down from there. You also have the capabilities of coming into the system and typing in a code to show you the codes that may be used as well if you know numbers. If you don't know numbers, you can also type in words and we'll give you a list of codes. So we allow you to search either by number or either by words. The next thing you'll notice in this process is when it comes to golf carts, an example, you'll notice that these have 4-digit codes in them instead of 3-digit codes in them. And the reason for that, these are what we use are called +1 codes. So these are ways that you can take a standard, and I'm going to come in here and document just a 322. And you'll notice there's a 322 for a motor vehicle accident with injuries, and there's a 3221, which is a 322-1, because the 1 is our +1 code. And it's basically the same thing, a motor vehicle accident with injuries, but it's a golf cart accident. So now in documenting your incident types, it will go to the federal government and to your state as a 322, but in your department analytics, you can segregate out how many calls involved golf carts versus those that didn't involve golf carts without having to have somebody read every narrative to look for the word golf cart. So we allow that process. So I'm going to go ahead and click this as a 321 involving a golf cart. You'll notice it was a +1 code, so we automatically filled in both of the fields for you. So you don't have to enter each part of it separately. If a +1 code is selected, we're going to enter both fields for you in that process. The next part you'll notice is your actions taken. When you document your actions taken, we give you the same thing. They're in a list about for the most commonly used. So I can come in here and document what I had. Basic life support. In FireWorks, as in NIFRS, you can have up to 3 incident actions taken. You have to have 1, but you can have up to 3, so you can document the 3 priorities in that process. So we're not deviating from what NIFRS allows. And then if I did receive mutual aid, I'm going to say I did because I want to show you something here in a minute. I can click mutual aid received, and you'll notice as soon as I click mutual aid received, the mutual aid tab showed up in our top ribbon. As you go down the list, you'll notice that if it is a commercial property where it happened, it may not show up on this side for protected property because we're trying to match the protected property based upon the address we're getting from the CAD. If this address had multiple suites with the same address, we don't know which one you're responding to. So if you know it happened at a commercial location, you would click on the search property icon and you'll notice we take the address and we show you what? All the properties that are at that address. So that now you can select the appropriate property, and that actually ties that property to your incident report. When we tie property to an incident report, it also enters any fields in the incident report that has data in the property section into your NIFRS report automatically. And then secondly, when you get down to add your owner or involvements, it gives you a quick list of the contacts that you caught during the pre-plan and loads them in so you can select one of them if that was one of the owners or involvements that you spoke with on the incident. So just a couple of things it does when you actually attach a property to that incident response. You'll notice here they're asking for a risk criteria. We'll put it as a low risk, and they're asking for a box location, which would be the station. And coming on down, here are your address locations, all of the information that is there, including the zone field, so you can document what zone it happened to be in. I'm just going to put one. And then as scrolling down, you'll notice that it has a place to where it documents your caller information. And then at the bottom, it has a place to document your property and property use in that process. And then scrolling down, it has a place to document your owners or involvement. And you'll notice, because we entered a protected property, it gave us that short key and it brings up the names. If it wasn't one of those guys, we wouldn't hit the short key, we would hit the add button. So in the add button, we have basically 4 ways of capturing the owner or the involved party. One way is basically typing the information in. The second way is if the information is the same as the caller, and when I say the same as the caller, I'm talking about this information right up here. I can just click on the button and it will start building that in by grabbing the caller's name and a phone number, and then I can fill out the rest of the stuff. The third way is grabbing data off of their driver's license. And there's 2 ways we function with the driver's license grab. One is I can get the person's driver's license because I want to write down their information, and I can flip it over. As little Florida's on the back or the front, most of them are on the back. The barcode, yeah, I can take a picture of the barcode on my phone, upload it to my computer, and when I'm doing this report, I can click driver's license file, and it will upload that barcode into our system, and whatever's in the barcode will drop into that contact. The fourth way is if I have my device and I'm out in the field and I have this incident open, I can grab that same driver's license and just take a picture of it using the camera button, and instead of saving that to the camera roll, we will upload that barcode information directly into the software and put their name and information there. So we have 4 options to capturing the name of the involved parties or the owners. The reason why I say that is because if this was a motor vehicle crash and you want to use our motor vehicle section to add information about the cars, the condition of the cars, the occupants of the cars, did you have to extricate, was the person ejected? In order to put a person in a vehicle in the MVC section, they have to be listed in the owners or involved party section of our report. That kind of makes sense? So our guys have gotten to the habit, if they're running a wreck and they're running a motor vehicle crash, somebody grabs the iPad and their whole job is to have the incident open. They grab the first driver's license, take a picture with the driver's license camera. They go to the next person, hit add, take their picture, go to the next person, hit add, take their picture, and in a couple of minutes, you've got all of the people listed in the report, and then they close the report out. Because you don't have to, once you go into a report, you don't have to complete it at that time. You can go in and grab information, and then at any time you want to stop what you're doing, you just come right here to the top and click on going home, and it saves whatever you've added, and it leaves that report in draft mode. So you don't have to, once you start a report, finish it. you can hop in and out and grab different pieces of that information. So those are one of the things you can do as far as grabbing your owners and contacts inside of that report. And I can come in here and put this person as the involved party, and it was a person, and I've captured their information. Then you have the questions that are specific to your organization. So your department has entered in some questions that you need to answer on every incident report. They want to know where you were dispatched from in that area, so I can put station 41. They want to know about your turnout time, and I can say no. They want to know about your travel time, I can say no. And then they want to know if this was paged as a structure fire, and I can say no. And then they ask the one, if there was a delay, you give it a description, and then you can describe what the delay was. So those 4 that I answered are required on every incident report according to your department profile. Those are not NIFRS questions. They are just questions that are basically asked when you fill out an incident report. And then to finish up that part is this is where you can type in your narrative. Narratives can be typed in. Narratives use Google spell check. So if the spelling is incorrect, it will underline it in red, and it will give you a recommendation of what the correct spelling is. So you can update your spelling using Google spell check. And we are okay with you copying and pasting. I have a lot of captains that'll have a Word document that they save on their desktop that has their cookie cutter narratives. They'll open up that Word document, they'll copy the narrative out of Word, and they'll paste it right in here, and we're good with that all day long. So we're okay with you typing it or pasting your narrative into the system. Once I finish the first page, I can basically next go to my response mode, and you'll notice that we're grabbing the information from the CAD. If any of these times are incorrect, you have the capabilities of modifying that time. Just because the CAD dropped the time in, if you know that somebody made a mistake and the time wasn't right, you can modify that time inside of the system. This is your report. You're the company officer creating the report. We're just providing you with information that we received from your CAD system. A real quick thing about times, just to show you, you don't have to use the up and down buttons all the time. We give you quick times. When I say quick times, so for example, if I pick on the minute, we give it to you in 5-minute intervals so you can get close to where you want to go. And we do the same thing in that process with all of our times. We give you dates, we give you quick time intervals, and then if you're doing this real time, we give you the clock button, which will drop it in as real time as the time on the system itself. So just a couple of features about how we manage time in that process. You'll notice that we list all of your apparatus that came in from the CAD or that responded on the call. And whichever apparatus is shaded in that gray, you'll notice that as you scroll down, we kind of give you the information for that individual truck. The type of engine, the suppression, there's their times, and then you'll notice at the bottom, if there were personnel on the truck, they would be listed here. Since this was a mutual aid engine, you'll notice there is a count, but there's no names, because we don't require you, if the truck is listed in our system as not one of your trucks, we just ask for a number of people. You don't have to give us, and I don't know if your current system asks you to create what we call phantom people. We don't need phantom people. We have taken your apparatus and we're putting names with people on your apparatus. We're putting numbers for other department apparatuses. So you no longer have to put a phantom name to say this was Detroit Firefighter 1, Detroit Firefighter 2, or whatever it might be. So we segregate that out in our process. If I click on my department engine, as I scroll down, you'll notice that it shows me the people. Okay? So in this process, let's say this call happened at shift change, or this call happened and the wrong person is listed on that truck. As a company officer, because maybe somebody didn't do their roster in a timely manner, shift commanders, or it happened at shift change and somebody swapped early or swapped late, all I have to do is click on the drop down caret and I can select the appropriate person that was riding on that position on the truck. If that person was bugged out for a couple of hours to go watch his kid's ball game or something like that, I can click on the X and remove them off of that truck. So just a couple of things that you're able to do as a company officer when you're documenting that process of who was on that truck in that situation. Scroll to the bottom. If your department requires some kind of documentation of an individual unit narrative, we provide for each truck a place to document a unit narrative. Yes, sir.
Be interested in each one as part of the narrative. You click on the generate button.
Yeah, I don't like to show the generate button because our narrative sucks. I'll just tell you.
You were storing some of our report.
So when you, on any truck, you can generate an automatic narrative in that process. But you'll notice what our generate narrative does is tells you they responded after receiving a fall at that time. Apparatus went en route, arrived on the scene, cleared the scene, and then it gives you who the crew members were. So it's a good starting point. One of the things I always show about that is if I generate this apparatus narrative for engine or for VE 401, I can come back over here to the incident narrative and I can copy it from that apparatus narrative. So down here where it says copy from apparatus narrative, I can say, give me that one. You notice what truck is not showing up? My automatic aid or my mutual aid truck. But I can come in here and say, grab the one from 401 and it will move it over to there. So you could do a generated narrative in the apparatus section and then add to that and then copy that over to your incident narrative. Just another option we have. I'm hoping that they'll make our generated narratives a lot stronger. We've put requests in to actually make incident generated narratives, but it hadn't made it all the way through the pipeline yet. It's stuck somewhere because some programmer has got an issue with it. So that's kind of where we're at in that process. After I finish the response mode, because I did receive mutual aid, I would go to the mutual aid section. And since the truck is listed, I should be able to click right here on calculate by response and look what it just did for me. It automatically said, hey, that truck belongs to that department. And on that truck, they had one truck and 2 personnel. So with that one swipe, I just documented what I had for mutual aid. If the truck was not listed in response section, I would basically come into here and click add agency, and I could manually put their name in and manually enter their times. And then down on the bottom, when I did that, I would also manually enter their number of trucks and personnel. So it's just one of the shortcuts that we add in because you guys have pre-populated the default number of people on trucks, and we know that this truck belongs to this FDID, and it's dropped into your incident report. We can calculate by response. And if you had multiple departments with multiple trucks, it would list all of those departments and all of those trucks in there for you automatically. So just one of the features we do to document that mutual aid information in the process. If you had hazmat, you could add hazmat. If you had casualties, you could add casualties. And then last going over, if there was the authorization tab, which should be the last tab you go through, here's how I explain the authorization tab. By default, when you click complete and we save that incident report, we're putting your name in as a member making report automatically. If you are the member making report and the officer in charge of that incident, when you go to the authorization tab, all you need to do is check the officer in charge is same as member making incident, and you're done. The only time you should have to add a name in here, if you were not the officer in charge, somebody else was the officer in charge of that incident, you would enter that officer's name, still leaving your name blank. And when you save it, we put your name in. Does that kind of make sense? So we don't want you to type it in. If I'm the officer in charge in the member making report, I would basically click that, and I'm done. I'm ready to save my report. What you will notice is down here in the bottom, everything that was done in that report has been tracked from every user, and everything has been tracked for the life of that report. And you'll notice here's multiple pages because I played in this report earlier this morning to preload some data that wasn't there. You'll notice that everything, including the narratives, is all listed inside of that process. This audit trail will stay with this report for the life of that report. So if anyone goes in and looks at this report, we capture that so-and-so viewed this report on this date and time. If anyone makes a change to that report, whoever's logged in and makes the change, we capture their information, date and time, and what the change was they made. So you'll notice I deleted a truck here, and then I added a truck. So information and how that goes into play. At this point, if I feel I have documented a good incident, I should be able to click right here on details, and it should tell me if there were any warnings. So you'll notice that I have no warnings, except somebody put that in there. So we got to remove that. And that's a reminder is what we call that. So we also allow your department to create reminders. So at every report, if they put a reminder in your system, it's just something to trigger you about things that may need to be done or items that they want you to go check on a report. If there were any issues, they would be listed inside of that report. So just to show this example, I'm going to come to this incident report, and I'm going to change it from basically an MVA, I'm going to change it to a structure fire. So I'm going to say I'm going to change this to a building fire, and it's going to change my incident report. And you'll notice that now when it gets through uploading, the fire screen has been added to my incident report. If I go back and look at my details, since I called it a building fire, you'll notice what is it now presenting me with? All of the things that NIFRs need to have completed as an error, and then other stuff down here that can be warnings. And remember, we follow the NIFRS 5.0 guideline. An error has to be completed to save the report. A warning can be ignored and the report can be saved. Okay, and when we say save a report in that process, what we're basically talking about is, I'm going to hop out of this, and you'll notice this report is still in draft mode. There's information loaded in, here it is right here, but it's still in draft mode. When we talk about draft mode, we're basically dealing with the process that our incident reports are saved in. Everything starts as a draft in the NIFRS world. Once we have completed that report and there are no errors, and we document it as a saved report, it moves to the completed mode. Completed mode in FireWorks means that that report has passed all of the NIFRS validation and all of your department validation, and that report has just become finished and locked so that it now exists in a view-only mode inside of your system. Once that report is in a view-only mode as completed, whoever is responsible for QC review of those incidents can go in and do the QC of that report. And when they have QC'd that report and they check it off for approval, we add their name to the report as a person that QC'd it and the date and time that they QC'd it, and we move it from completed to approved, and that approved report is sent to NIFRS. So it's either sent to the state or the federal level, whoever you report to when you export your NIFRS reports. If while I'm QCing that report and it's in the completed mode, I find an issue, I can reopen that report, send the notification back to that company officer, they can fix it and resubmit it for completion and approval. And the rule is, if the port is approved and it's reopened, when they complete it, it goes back to approved status. If the port is completed and it's reopened, when they resubmit it, it goes back to completed status and it has to be reviewed a second time. So that's kind of how we handle those reports inside of FireWorks. So just to show an example of that, I'm going to come right here to this report. I'm going to move it back to a golf cart accident. I'm going to put it back as a 321. Let's just put golf cart in there. Oop. And I'll make it a motor vehicle accident with a golf cart. We'll do that. And now you'll notice that I'm ready to finish this report. To complete a report, all you do is click on the checkbox. And when you click on the checkbox, it does that validation check, and it will mark that report off as a completed incident report. But before we do that, one of the other things I wanted to show you as a company officer is you have the capabilities from inside of our incident report to attach documents, photos, or whatever to that incident report. You're running a pot on the stove fire, and it was an unattended fire. And you have a perfect picture of what? The knob turned on the stove. And I want to document that in my incident report. If you have a device handy with a camera, you can log into that incident report because it's going to be in your system. I can do nothing more than go to the attachment section, take a picture of that with my iPad or my tablet. It will add that attachment to your report, and then I can click on the house and get out of that report and continue my business. So after we've knocked the fire down, after we got everything done, my crews are picking up equipment, I'm the officer, and there's some pictures that I want to document for this incident. I can grab my tablet, open that report up, go into the attachment section, and just take some pictures. And then when I get back to the station and I'm doing my report, if there's pictures I want to keep, I can keep them. If there's pictures I don't want to keep, I can delete them. So it's another way of documenting your situation if you're doing that origin and cause investigation as a company officer. Just another tool we're putting in your toolbox as a company officer documenting that incident. You can also basically add them as a file. So if I don't want to get the tablet out, I'll take some pictures with my iPhone or my Droid or whatever it is. I can email them to me. I sit down in my station office, I'm doing my report. I can pull them up off of my computer and upload them as well. So we give you the add file feature and we give you the camera feature to document attachments. So I'm through with my report. I can come right here and click, I want to complete it. When I do complete it, it basically tells me that, hey, we've done a reprocess. There are warnings. Do you want to ignore the warnings? Yes, I want to ignore the warnings and click OK. It shows you what the warnings were. And now I've just moved this report from draft mode to completed mode. So who in here or anybody in here responsible for QCing incident reports? Okay, so let's talk about the QC process. I can come into here, and if I have a report that's marked as completed, it has to be QC. As that officer or commander QCing a report, I can click on that report, and it's going to open that report up. You'll notice that it's opening up the report, and I can scroll down. I can read the narrative. If everything looks good, everything is answered because it's past validation. And I often tell my battalion chiefs, I said, okay, if the report is completed, remember these two things. Everything that NIFRS requires to be answered in a report is there. And then everything that the department is required to be answered in a report is there. If those two things weren't done, it wouldn't be in completed status. It would still be in draft. Make sense? So I can put that away. So now I want to say, okay, I'm QCing a report. The first thing is I want to scroll down here and read what my company officer put in that incident report to make sure that it's a statement that if your mother read it tomorrow morning about you in the paper, she would be okay about it. So we want to make sure the narrative is okay. Especially the thing about a narrative, and I always teach company officers is, a narrative is that plain English description of what happened on that call. If we use a lot of terminology that is specific to the fire service, you're going to find yourself having to answer those questions somewhere down the road. So I always tell everybody when you're writing a narrative, and this is a public document, which is what a NIFRS report is, use the KISS method. Y'all know the KISS method? Yeah. Use the KISS method in documenting your narrative. At that point, I may want to make sure that things are correct. For example, in your department, you have some information up here that is problem. If I have station 44 here, should the box be station 42? Well, probably not. So I would come in here and I'd want to reopen it and say, hey, you got two options. Either you can fix it yourself or you can send a message to a captain to fix it or a lieutenant to fix it and get it back to you. How do we do that? Pretty simple. I can click right here on the envelope. I can type a message. John, please go back into the report and make sure that the box matches the station because it's incorrect. Or, hey, John, I went in there and I fixed your report because your box didn't match the station. In the future, please be aware of those two need to match, whatever you want to do. So I can type my email message into him right here, and then I can hit on the crew list, and it's going to show me everybody that was on that call. Well, maybe it was Juan. Juan, you have your email available to you? Yes. On your phone? No? No? Okay. Well, if he had his phone, I would send him a message, and he would get an email that would say, hey, you need to go fix this report. And it's called as an incident report action needed, is what the title of the email says. So I would grab his name, I would type the message, and then when I send message, he gets an email, and in that email is what I wanted to tell him to do on the report, and then it also gives him a link to that incident. So when he logs in, it brings him straight to that incident, and he can fix that incident report. So that's how we can notify someone that the report they submitted to be QC'd needs a little more work. On the other side of that, if I want them to modify this report, as the person QCing the report, I have to reopen it. So I would click right here to reopen that report, and I would have to put in a short reason of why I'm reopening the report. You know, narrative fix, whatever you want to use, but just a short thing to put why I'm reopening the report, and click reopen. And when you do that, the report does not go back to draft status. the report goes to reopened status. So it will show as a different status inside of our system. And that's how you would walk through the QC process. What does it do for the person QCing the report? It timestamps when you logged into that report and you started viewing it. It timestamps when you flagged that you're reopening the report, and it puts the comment of why you're reopening it. Then, when you send the email to that person, it adds that email as an attachment. So you now have documentation that you reopened this report and you send an email to that lieutenant. It shows that the email was sent to that lieutenant in that process. I'm the lieutenant, I get the email, I fixed the report, I resubmit it as completion. I'll pop up and hit that email and create an email back to that supervisor saying, hey, the report has been fixed and completed. It puts that in there as an attachment. So now what do you have? You got documentation. My supervisor told me a report had to be fixed. I fixed it. I sent him an email back documenting that it's there. Just a little workflow that we allow you to do, but you'll notice we're doing all of that from where? That incident report. You're not having to pop out and go to Outlook. You're not having to go to another program. We're doing all of that from inside that incident report. If I'm okay with the report, I will just click right here to approve it. And now at that point, it shows me that that was there. And then I'll come down here and look at the bottom, or I'll go back to the list. And now that report has moved from completed mode to approved mode. That's kind of the workflow of documenting a NIFRS incident report inside of FireWorks in that process. The last thing I always show shift commanders or people responsible for reports getting done during your shift. If you come right here and you say, I want to see those incidents that are in draft mode, and I click search, and it's looking at the last 24 hours. Let's say it's 9 o'clock tonight. Everybody's getting ready to bug out, get their shift knocked out, you know, going to get a good night's sleep at some stations, and we're going to go home in the morning. Well, I can come here and it's going to say, well, look, we've had all these calls today and they have not been completed yet. I can click on report alert. And if you are a lieutenant on any one of those calls, you're getting an email. And that email is going to say incident report information or action needed. And it's going to list every report that is still in draft mode that has not been completed by the lieutenant. Now, here's the catch. It's not, doesn't know which lieutenant is responsible for the report. So every lieutenant is getting an email. We kind of let y'all fix that amongst yourselves. Okay? So that's another mechanism that we have inside of our system that's called report alerts, to where in most of my shift commanders, they'll pick about 8:30 or 9 o'clock at night. They'll open up and they'll go do report alert, and then they go to bed. Because basically it's telling those captains, you got documents that have been done. And the reason why they do that is because, you know, we have a policy, if it's after 9 o'clock at night, you try to get it done by the end of the shift. But we want you, when you go to bed, to send out an alert to say, okay, guys, they're doing. Now, I got one shift name will be known, B shift. That shift commander actually gets up in the morning before shift change and does it a second time. So if there are any calls that went in through the night, he's making sure that he guys get their reports done before they leave. So that's just the process of how you can do it. I know we're running close on time. One other thing I want to show you about calls in our system that is something maybe a little bit different that we do in FireWorks is that, for example, if this was a cancel and route call, you can actually come in here and document it as cancel and route. And then we ask you, we drop it in as your action taken, but then we ask you, do you want me to go ahead and take every truck and every person that's in this report and mark them all as canceling route? And I go, yes, please do that. So you can do that. So let's say for some reason one of your trucks arrived on scene and 4 trucks were canceled. I can next come into here, and if I've got one truck that arrived on scene, I could come down there and remove their actions taken, and then I can change the incident type to where it actually what it was. Because in our system, if one truck arrives on scene, the incident type cannot be dispatched and canceling route. But the other 3 trucks that did not arrive on scene, you have to flag those trucks individually as dispatched and canceling route, or it will prompt you with a NIFRS error that says you have trucks that are not flagged as dispatch and canceling route, but they did not arrive on scene. So if you have 4 trucks on a call, 3 trucks don't arrive, just know that you have to mark those trucks individually as they did not arrive on scene, 93, canceling route, in order to save that incident report. And that's the only little quirk that we kind of have with our software, because we really pride ourselves on the EMS side with EPCRs, we have a 98.7% first time out the box rating with NMSIS as far as data integrity and making everything right. The fewest errors out of any software company out there currently right now, according to NMSIS. And then on the NIFRS side, we want to do the same thing. So we wrote our rules a little bit tighter than other software may have had it. So you're going to see some quirks and some different errors that you may not see with your current software, just to let you know about that. So we covered NIFRS incidents, pre-plans, hydrants, training, and a general overview of FireWorks. We have, well, it's 12 o'clock by my watch. Any last questions? Thank y'all for giving me your Saturday morning.
We're still going to be using ESO for a while.
Oh.
Eventually, we are, he made it the messenger. I wanted it back in March.
I didn't get that.